My wife thought I was blind to her secrets, but she forgot one thing. You don't stay married for over 2 decades without learning how to read the signs. 23 years together, 2 kids, and she thought she could trade it all for late-night motel meetings with her trainer. She was ready to split my business in half like it was nothing more than loose change. But she underestimated me. She underestimated Patrick Ashcroft. Before we go further, I need you to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I'm 52 years old, and I've been running Ashcroft's truck repair here in Millfield, Ohio for the past 18 years. Built it from scratch, turned it into something the whole town depends on. From 18-wheelers to construction rigs, if it's on wheels and broken, it ends up in my shop. People know me for one thing, straight dealing. Honest work, fair prices, no games. That's the way I've always lived my life, and for the longest time, I believed my wife, Diane, lived hers the same way. We had 2 kids together, Sophie, 17, almost ready for college, and Elijah, 15, with more opinions than sense. Good kids, both of them. But lately I noticed the weight in their eyes. Kids pick up on things. They can feel when the house doesn't breathe right, even when the adults pretend everything's fine. Looking back now, the first red flag showed up 6 months ago. Diane suddenly wanted to get in shape, join a fitness class downtown. She bought new workout clothes, started disappearing for hours 3 times a week, and came home buzzing about her trainer. And yeah, I'll admit she looked better than she had in years, but the way she lit up when she talked about him, that gnawed at me. It wasn't just the gym either. Her father, Harold, had been living with us since his dementia worsened, and Diane used to be so patient with him. But lately, she'd snap, complain she couldn't breathe in the house anymore. I thought it was stress. I told myself she needed space. But then came the phone calls that ended when I walked into the room. The text messages that made her smile like a teenager again. I trusted her, because that's what a fool does. He trusts the woman who vowed to stand by him, even when she's already standing with someone else. The night everything started to unravel was a Tuesday in March. I'd just finished a massive repair job on a fleet of delivery trucks. Came home dead tired, ready to find Diane in the kitchen or maybe helping Sophie with her college applications. Instead, I walked into silence. Her father, Harold, was sitting alone in the living room, still in his pajamas, staring at the TV with that lost look he got when his mind drifted. Nobody had given him dinner. Nobody had even helped him get dressed. That wasn't like Diane. Where's Mom? I asked Sophie, who was in the kitchen making a sandwich. She froze for a second before answering. Emergency fitness class meeting, she said, her voice clipped. Like she was repeating a lie, she didn't believe herself. When did she leave? I pressed. Sophie kept her eyes on the bread knife in her hand. Around 6. She said she'd be back by 10. It was already close to 9. What kind of emergency class runs for 3 hours on a weeknight? I tucked Harold into bed, made sure he ate something, but my head was spinning the whole time. I tried Diane's phone twice. Straight to voicemail. No answer. That's when I knew this wasn't stress. This wasn't fitness. This was something else. Over the next few weeks, I paid attention. Real attention. Every sudden schedule change, every volunteer meeting that required her to dress up like she was going to a business dinner, every girls' night out that left her coming home smelling faintly of men's cologne. One afternoon, my brother Clint stopped by the shop. He'd been sober 6 months, the longest stretch since his army days. He took one look at me and said, "You look like hell, Patrick." "What's going on?" I hesitated, then said it out loud for the first time. "I think Diane's seeing someone." The words didn't even feel real in my mouth. Clint leaned forward, eyes steady. "You got proof or just a gut feeling?" "Just a feeling." "Then get proof," Clint said. "Don't throw accusations you can't back up. But don't ignore your gut either. Your gut's usually right about these things." That night, Diane came home late again, kissed me on the cheek like everything was normal, then went straight to the shower. And I knew. It was time to stop being naive. It was time to start being smart. 3 weeks later, the perfect opportunity dropped into my lap. Diane announced she was heading to Columbus for a weekend fitness retreat. 2 days of intensive training and wellness workshops, she said, packing her overnight bag like she was leaving for a new life. Funny thing, she had never once mentioned wanting to be a fitness instructor. "I need this, Patrick," she told me, her eyes burning with something I couldn't quite name. "I need to focus on myself for once." I just nodded, kept my thoughts to myself. What she really needed was 2 days with her so-called trainer. The moment she drove off Friday morning, I headed straight to the gym she supposedly went to. The place was called Iron Fitness, tucked into a strip mall downtown. Inside, I asked about membership options, playing it casual. The manager, a young guy named Tony, smiled. "Your wife's been coming here for months. Real dedicated to her workouts." "Oh yeah? What classes does she take?" I asked. Tony blinked, confused. "Classes? We don't run group classes here. Just individual workouts and personal training." My chest went tight. "Who trains her?" "Mostly Brett Coleman," he said, smirking like the name should mean something. "One of our best guys. Really helps people meet their goals, if you know what I mean." Yeah, I knew exactly what he meant. That evening, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed my wife. She told the kids she was at a retreat, but I had a feeling she was a lot closer to home. I parked near Iron Fitness and waited. At 7:30 sharp, Diane's car rolled in. But instead of gym clothes, she was wearing a dress that cost more than some folks make in a week. Definitely not retreat attire. Minutes later, a black pickup pulled up. A tall, muscular man in his early 50s got out. Brett Coleman, my wife's trainer. He leaned into Diane's car window and kissed her. Not a friendly kiss, not a quick hello, a long, slow kiss you only share with someone you're sleeping with. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. My jaw clenched. But I stayed put. I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. They drove off separately, but in the same direction. I followed at a distance, heart pounding, and then I saw it, the Riverside Motel, the kind of place that rents rooms by the hour. Brett checked them in while Diane sat waiting in her car. 23 years of marriage, 2 kids, a life we'd built, and she was tossing it all away for a man who charged by the hour. I drove home that night feeling like someone had ripped my insides out with a rusty blade. But at least now I knew the truth. The only question was, what was I going to do about it? The weekend dragged on like a bad dream. Diane came home Sunday evening, glowing like she'd just been on vacation. She had stories ready about life-changing workshops and wellness seminars. She even brought back a cheap certificate from some made-up program, waving it around like proof. But I knew better. I had seen the truth with my own eyes, and that was a wound no certificate could cover. Monday morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when Diane walked in wearing her robe. She looked rested, relaxed, like adultery had been a spa treatment. "Morning, honey," she said, leaning in to kiss me. I stepped back before she touched me. My voice was cold, steady. "We need to talk." The smile on her face collapsed instantly. She knew. She didn't know how much, but she knew. "About what?" she asked carefully, her eyes darting. I looked her straight in the eye. "Tell Brett Coleman he's got you full-time next week." "I'll handle the divorce papers." Her face drained of color. For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Mouth open, no words. Just silence. "Wait, what?" she finally whispered. "You heard me?" I said. "I saw you at the Riverside Motel Friday night. I know about you and your trainer. That wasn't a retreat." Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw it. Fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing her comfort, her lifestyle, the roof over her head. "Patrick, I can explain," she stammered. I raised my hand, cutting her off. "No excuses, no lies. I know what I saw. I know what you've been doing." Her act started shifting. First denial, then anger. "You're being paranoid. Brett's just my trainer." We were discussing fitness goals. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "At a motel? For a whole weekend?" She flushed red, caught in her own lie. Then her voice snapped. "How dare you follow me? That's a violation of my privacy." Privacy? I barked back. You lost that the moment you started cheating on your husband and lying to your kids. That's when she pulled out the victim card. Tears welled up. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Taking care of your father, raising the kids, feeling trapped. I needed someone who made me feel alive again. I didn't blink. My voice was ice. Then you should have talked to your husband instead of sneaking off to motels with your trainer. Her hand flew up for a slap, but I caught her wrist mid-air. My grip was firm, calm. Don't, I said quietly. You've done enough damage. After that confrontation, Diane spun through the 5 stages of grief in fast forward. First came denial. She tried convincing me I hadn't seen what I saw. You're imagining things, Patrick. Brett and I are just friends. I stayed calm. Friends don't spend weekends at motels. When denial failed, she switched to anger. She screamed about her privacy, about how I was destroying our family over nothing. You're ridiculous, Patrick, she shouted, her voice echoing through the kitchen. You're ruining everything. I folded my arms. No, you ruined it when you cheated, then came bargaining. Suddenly she was willing to give it all up. I'll quit the gym. I'll cut Brett off. We can go to counseling. Please, we can fix this. I shook my head. You threw away 23 years. That's not something you tape back together. By afternoon, she slid into depression, sitting at the table with tissues, crying like her world was ending. Maybe it was. But she was the architect of her own collapse. When the kids came home, they found their mother in tears and me packing her things into garbage bags. Sophie looked at me, then at Diane, and her eyes told me she already knew. How long have you known? She asked quietly. I suspected for weeks, I told her. But I got proof this weekend, she nodded once. Good. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. Elijah didn't take it as easily. His eyes bounced back and forth between us. Dad, what's happening? I didn't sugarcoat it. Your mother's been seeing another man. She's not going to be living here anymore. With Brett? Sophie asked suddenly, her voice sharp. Both Diane and I froze. How do you know about Brett? Diane demanded. Sophie rolled her eyes. I'm 17, Mom, not blind. You think I didn't notice you sneaking around? The cologne? The texting? The late-night calls in your car? The truth was out now, raw and undeniable, and no amount of tears could stuff it back inside. That evening, Diane's mother, Beverly, called the house. Clearly, Diane had already fed her a twisted version of the story, because Beverly came out swinging. How could you kick Diane out over a misunderstanding? She snapped. There's no misunderstanding, I said flatly. Your daughter's been having an affair. She's been lying to me and the kids for months. That's impossible. Beverly barked. Diane's a good Christian woman, I let out a bitter laugh. Good Christian women don't spend nights at motels with their trainers. An hour later, Beverly stormed into my house without knocking, eyes blazing like she was ready for war. You listen to me, Patrick Ashcroft, she said, jabbing her finger at my chest. You will not destroy my daughter's reputation over your paranoia. It's not paranoia, I shot back. I saw them together. I have proof. Proof? She sneered. Delusions is what you have. That's when Sophie stepped forward. She looked her grandmother dead in the eye. Grandma, stop pretending. Mom's been cheating. We all know it. Beverly's face went pale, then red, then pale again. Sophie, your father has poisoned your mind. Nobody poisoned me, Sophie cut her off. I've got eyes and ears. I know what I've seen. Beverly turned back to me, her voice low and venomous. If you go through with this divorce, you'll regret it. Diane will take everything. Your house, your business, your children. You'll be left with nothing. I stood tall. And that's how it'll be. I'd rather have nothing than live with a lying, cheating wife. Her eyes narrowed. And what about Harold? He needs care. If Diane leaves, who's going to look after him? I glanced at Harold, sitting quietly in his chair, lost in the fog of dementia, but still family. He stays here, I said firmly. My responsibility doesn't change because your daughter broke her vows. Beverly's jaw dropped. She had expected me to crumble under pressure. Instead, I stood solid. That night, after everyone left and the house was quiet, Harold had one of his rare, clear moments. He looked at me and asked, "Where's Diane?" "She's staying somewhere else for a while, Harold," I said softly. He nodded slowly. "She's been restless, like she was chasing something not here."
"I'm sorry this is happening."
"You're a good man, Patrick. Don't let her take that away from you." Coming from him, those words meant more than anything Diane could ever say. The next morning, I called my lawyer and started the divorce process. 23 years of marriage finished with a phone call. Painful, yes, but necessary. I also went to the bank. I couldn't risk Diane draining our accounts while playing victim. Jim Patterson, the account manager, had known me for years.
"What's going on, Patrick?"
he asked. "My wife's been having an affair. I need to protect my business assets," I told him bluntly. Within 2 hours, every business fund was secure under my name only. That's when I learned something else. Diane had been withdrawing cash for months. Small amounts, adding up to thousands. She'd been financing her affair with money meant for our family. Later that week, I got a call I wasn't expecting. Brett Coleman himself. "Mr. Ashcroft, we need to talk." I cut him off. "We have nothing to discuss." She told me she was separated, Brett stammered.
"I never would have touched her if I knew the truth. By the time I found out, things were—"
"Complicated? Complicated how?"
I asked. "She said she planned to take half of everything, the house, your business, custody of the kids."
"She thinks you're too soft to fight back." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My wife hadn't just betrayed me. She was planning to gut my life and hand it over to her boyfriend, but Brett was wrong about one thing. I wasn't soft anymore. That week, I served her papers.
"And then I put the house on the market."
If Diane wanted half of everything, she could have half of what was left after I protected what was mine. Word spread fast in a small town. By the time the realtor's sign hit the yard, everyone knew. Diane panicked, called me, screamed, begged, threatened.
Nothing worked. When she showed up with Beverly, trying one last time to use Harold as a pawn, fate handed her a blow she didn't see coming.
She knelt by her father, pleading, "Daddy, tell Patrick he can't throw us out." Harold blinked at her, confused.
"Who are you?"
he asked. Tears spilled down Diane's face.
"It's me, Daddy, your daughter." Harold shook his head.
"My daughter takes care of me. You don't. Patrick does." Even through his dementia, he saw the truth. The divorce moved fast. Diane's lawyer pushed for half of everything. My lawyer pushed back harder. In the end, she walked away with less than she imagined, and I kept what mattered most, my business, my kids, and my dignity. Sophie flourished in college. Elijah grew into a strong young man. Harold lived with us, cared for, with the respect he deserved. And me?
I rebuilt.
Slowly, piece by piece, I built a new life from the ashes.
Eventually, I even opened my heart again. Diane?
She kept chasing thrills until there was nothing left to chase. But that was her story to live with. Mine was about resilience.
But proving that betrayal doesn't have to break you, it can sharpen you. And in the end, it made me stronger than I'd ever been.